You're now watching a clip from the Inspired by show. You can watch the full episode on our YouTube channel or listen on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to head over there, leave us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed it, and follow the show. How have you found that going on your journey now with, people critiquing the characters or possibly critiquing your writing style? Have you found that's become more embedded in your writing journey?
It's, again, one of those things that it's almost like if people say something negative about the characters, and what I'm finding is actually, while there seems to be a lot of love, which is wonderful, Rosie gets quite a lot of criticism as opposed to anybody else. And that to me is so interesting because on one level it feels like someone's insulting your child.
That's what I was going to ask, actually.
Please just don't do it. Yeah. But obviously it's great that people are having a discourse and a debate, and that's all really good stuff. But it's been interesting to me to sort of witness as a writer. I feel like these two characters are extremely balanced. I feel like they both have their flaws. They're both damaged. They both make bad decisions. They both mess the other around in their own sort of, kind-hearted way because they're not bad people. And yet Will gets off scot-free because he's this good-looking, broken guy that everybody, adores. And Rosie is held to these different standards of, I get a lot of wanted to shake Rosie or throw the book out the window at this point when she made this decision. And that to me is so telling because the whole point in Rosie's journey, and again, no spoilers for anyone that hasn't read the book, she holds herself to these incredibly kind of painstaking standards that causes her so much anxiety and stress, and is actually, I think, very sort of representative of women in general. And the standards we are held to. If we're not perfect, we're criticised for not being perfect. But then at the same time, we are criticised if we strive for perfection, which is essentially what Rosie is doing. So, and I think I related to that element as a woman, always sort of feeling as though there are rules that we have to live by, and buying into that because you get those messages from such a young age. And Rosie is held to those standards not only by her mother, but herself. And she believes in those rules and that rigid sort of box-ticking way of living her life. And so I think just writing about that felt very natural and quite authentic in a way because I could relate to that stuff, obviously being a woman myself. And then obviously the characters as well go through their own sort of mental health struggles. And that was something that was really close to my heart as well, that I felt, whilst is so much more a part of mainstream conversation, thanks to things like the Happy Place Festival where we met. And that's fantastic. But in fiction, whether that's in novels or in films, mental health is still almost exaggerated or spotlit. It's a book about depression. It's a book about a personality disorder. And for me, there's more to it than that. I feel like mental health is much more nuanced, at least in my own experience, and from friends and, colleagues that I've spoken to. And I wanted mental health for these two characters to weave through their story, to weave into the texture of the fiction in the way that it weaves through our lives. So when people are sort of critical of Rosie, when I really feel for her, I really see why she's making the choices she's making. And I hope that the reader can see too. It's hurtful because you kind of think, oh, poor Rosie, but also really understandable and relatable.
Yeah, but actually exactly what you shared, I just totally agree with you there, Claire, because one, that's how women are portrayed in a lot of the world we are living in today. No offense, most men, typically in that situation, Will and Rosie, men get off scot-free. Stereotypically, women not so much, if you think about it in lots of different scenarios. But I think that my favorite thing about what you've done, exactly as you shared there, is you've weaved the mental health aspects into the book, and it's not a major thing. From my own experience, it's not, when I had depression, it's not, yes, okay, it impacted my life and set me on a trajectory that I'm sat here today as a result of, but it's not the only thing that happened in my world. And I think a lot of people have to tell their story like that and write books like that. And like you say, it's not, that's not how the world is. That's not what our life is like. And also, if that's what we think our life is like, it's pretty dark and sad,
Yeah.
isn't it? That we're not seeing the other parts of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you've hit the nail on the head. I feel like for me, if you have, you know, depression long term, or even just one sort of bout of it, or if you suffer from anxiety like Rosie does, or whatever it might be that your struggle or your wound might be, it doesn't have to define you. It is a part of the story. And I say that obviously with the knowledge that some people, it's, you know, mental health is a sliding scale, and you're on one end of it super well and happy and, you know, managing, and on the completely other end it can be extremely severe and you can be, you know, institutionalized, and that is a reality for a lot of people. But generally, day to day, most of us sit somewhere in the middle. We're having good days, we're having bad days, but equally you can really suffer with something very real like depression, or in the book, you know, OCD is covered, or addiction is covered. And I like to think, as in the book, as in real life, it's an element of your existence. It's something you have to manage day to day. But there is so much more to life at the same time. And I think when we don't sort of think, oh, so-and-so is suffering with X, Y, Z, let's hope they can, you know, get better, take some pills and they'll be over the hill. It's kind of like, no, it's, in my experience, it's something that is very much ever present, that we have to be very aware of and talk about, but know that, you know, life goes on, and there are shades of light and dark. There's hope and there is sorrow, and there is love and laughter, and there's also tragedy and grief and difficult things that we all have to go through. And I wanted that sort of, that texture, I wanted that to be reflected in the book that I was writing.